Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saviryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Shri Gurave Namaha. Samasta Janakalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Can we chant verses 10 through 13 together? Saha yajñah praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyatvam eshavostvishta kamadhuka devan bhavayatanena de deva bhavayantu vaha parasparam bhavayantaha sheyav paramavapsyatha ishtan bhogan hi vo devaha dasyante yajna bhavitaha te dattana pradayebhyo Yo bhunte stena eva saha yajna shishtashinas santo muchyante sarva kilbishaihi bhunjate te tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat. So in this third chapter on Karma Yoga, a large part of this chapter is Lord Krishna making arguments to persuade Arjuna to do Karma Yoga, to persuade Arjuna to do his duty. Not just Arjuna, but all of us, that we should do our duty, and we should do it with a spirit of dedication. So far, we've seen Lord Krishna make two arguments to Arjuna. The first argument that Lord Krishna makes is that by doing Karma Yoga, you purify and focus your mind so you can do Jnana Yoga, so you can meditate. And through that meditation, you can attain realization. Okay, so we've seen this point exhaustively. Karma Yoga leads to Jnana Yoga leads to realization. So do Karma Yoga so that you can get realization. Then Lord Krishna says that in the creation itself, it's not just that Lord Brahma created all the beings in the world and the universe and the stars and everything like that, and just said, okay, you do whatever you want. You know, Lord Brahma, he created the world, And Lord Brahma gave us a manual to go along with that world. And that manual is the Veda. And that Veda says you must do your duties, right? Like you don't get some new appliance and something like that, and then you just have to figure it out. You have to read the manual in order to use it. Just like that, if the world has been created and you've been put here in this world, you should have some idea of what to do with who and with what. Yes or no? Yes. Right? So Lord Brahma created, along with this world, various duties that we have to do. Okay? And these duties are called as yajna. Now sometimes when we hear the word yajna or see the word yajna, we think that it just means some fire ritual. You just throw some ahutis, some ghee, some samagri into the fire, and that's what yajna is. Then the smoke goes up to the heavens and the gods are nourished for that. So if we think in a very orthodox and limited way, then all we think of yajna is just that, havan, yajna, homam, or yaga. All these words come. But that is just a very limited way of looking at it. Then we say yajna is duty. Then if we think about it from like an English language perspective, we just think duty means what? Go to work, pay the bills, take care of the wife and kids, or husband, wife and kids, Then we think duty is also very limited in that way too. But what does Lord Brahma said is duty? Duty is how many things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Yajna is referring to a Pancha Maha Yajna. So in the Veda, when it talks about yajna, it doesn't just mean havan, it means the Pancha Maha Yajna. First yajna, now I can ask you which one is the first, but you have to remember the order also. And I also have to remember the order. First yajna is called as Brahma Yajna. So Brahma here is referring to the Veda. Who was the Veda revealed to? What people were the Veda revealed to? Rishis, right? Rishis, okay? So the Veda is also revealed to Rishis. So Brahma Yajna also can be called as Rishi Yajna, okay? So we incur a debt and we have to pay off that debt. So sometimes these yajnas are called as rina. Rina means debt. Rina, R dot, N dot, rina, A. Okay? So from the Veda, we get the whole of the Vedic culture. And we get the whole of, what to do with life, what is the purpose of my life. And in order to pay back that debt, see, don't take culture for granted. You were given this culture. You have a debt to this culture which is sustained over millennia, longer than any other civilizational culture has ever lasted. Yes or no? So you have a debt to that culture. How do you repay that debt? By doing Brahma Yajna. What does doing Brahma Yajna mean? It means studying the scriptures, chanting the scriptures, supporting scriptures, encouraging people to learn the scriptures, and even teaching other people scriptures. All these things are part of Brahma Yajna. So you pay your debt to the Vedic culture by propagating the Vedic culture. At least to your children. Clear? When we bring our children to Chimay Mission and we spread the Vedic culture. And don't think Vedic culture is just restricted to only that specific text of Vedas. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these things are included in the Vedic culture, Vaidika culture. Is it clear? Okay. So we pay off our debt to the rishis by spreading the Veda, and that is our Brahma Yajna. Okay? Next one is Manushya Yajna. Okay? Only because the whole society, all the people in the society are working together to help each other, to sustain the marketplace, to sustain all the infrastructure that we need, to ensure that we have everything that we need. So we all work, so we all understand this, our place in it and other people's place in it. We benefit from the work of so many people, not only that we know, but so many people that we don't even know. all the construction workers, all the electricians, plumbers, everybody. Everything that's done, so much of it is done by the people around us. So we have a debt to the society, the people in the society as a whole. Clear? Yes? Okay, so how do we pay back that debt? By making sure we do our work efficiently and with good spirit, and by supporting the people that need help. This is called as Manushya Yajna or Nir Yajna. All right, next one. Next one is Bhuta Yajna. Okay, so Bhuta refers to all the living creatures other than people, all the animals and plants and bacteria and everything. So we have to support these beings as well. Okay, so we make sure we don't harm the animals as much as we can. We make sure we take care of the plants, that we create a good environment for the plants. You know, all these things, this is our debt to the various animals that are there. We have an ecosystem that we're a part of, you know. Even for getting crops and food and agriculture, you know. Why is the crop yield so bad? Why aren't there enough crops? Why aren't there enough plants? Because the rats ate them. Okay. Why is it that there's so many rats to eat so many crops? Because the snakes didn't eat the rats. Okay. Why aren't there enough snakes to eat the rats? Because the people killed the snakes, right? So we're part of an ecosystem where everything has its own part to play. Everything has its own place to play. Even the rats have to be there so that the snakes have something to eat. Okay? So everything works in a perfect ecosystem, and we have to make sure we support that ecosystem. So we have a debt to the bhutas, to the animals, to the ecosystem. So we pay off that debt. Okay? Next one is called as Pitra Yajna. So who are the people who have propagated and supported the culture and who have taken care of us, who have made sure that we have enough, who made sure we got properly educated and everything? That is our ancestors. That is our pitras, you know. They've held up, even, you know, before. Nowadays, you do whatever job that you want to do. You go to school, you figure out what the job market is. You know, I think in 10, 15 years, this job will still be there. It won't get replaced by AI or something like that. So I'm going to get into this field, okay? Hopefully that job doesn't get replaced by AI. Right? Your kids have to think about these things now when they go to college. Is this job replaceable, or is this job something that's still going to be a job in so many years? Yes or no, right? So what all that is to say is that our parents have done so much, that our ancestors have done so much to ensure that we have everything that we need to be successful in this life. As much as possible they have done. So we have a debt to those ancestors. So we have to take care of our relatives who are still living. Then we do things like Shad Karma, Pindadana, Tarpanam to nourish those pitras who are in the heavens so they keep blessing us with punya also. It creates that sense of reverence. It creates that sense of love for culture and appreciation, gratitude for what people have done in the past. If we don't have that gratitude or appreciation for what's done in the past, then it's less likely that we'll carry that on in the future. Does it make sense? Right? So Pitra Yajna must be done. And then Deva Yajna also must be done. So we've seen that in these verses. Last week we saw that the Devas, they support the cosmic function, you know, of rain, sunlight, wind, waters, and probably so many things that we don't know also. We think that it all happens automatically on its own, through its own process. But in our Veda, they've shown how we can keep a balance in that process. It's not something that we can very easily scientifically understand because we're conditioned to think a certain way, which we only accept the inputs from our five senses as evidence. But there's a subtler way in which a universe works that is encoded in the Veda and taught to us, And we have to give that, even though it doesn't match up, or it's not supported by the science that we currently have, you have to think that this, whatever is there in the Veda, has been done for thousands and thousands of years, and it's still being done today. So it cannot all be nonsense, or it cannot at all be nonsense also. Some faith has to be there that by doing certain yajnas, havans, pujas, you bring a balance to the universe as a whole, the community, the society, the nation, and the universe as a whole. So we'll see in the verses that we cover today that by doing yajna, you support the cosmic function, such as the giving of rains at the proper time and the proper amount. Okay, so these 5 yajnas are there. First one is Brahma Yajna. Second one is Manushya Yajna. Third one is Bhuta Yajna. Fourth one is Pitra Yajna. And fifth one is Deva Yajna. All these 5 yajnas are part of our duty. We nourish the Devatas, the Pitras, the Bhutas, the other people, and the Rishis, the Veda itself, and they in turn nourish us. They support our life. They make our life and the lives of the people around us more harmonious when we do the duties. Okay? When should we do the duties? In a way, we should always be doing the duties. But in what context? We work and we spend our time, we spend our time and energy doing work and we earn money, right? Then with that money that we earn, we should take care of all our needs. We have to take care of all our needs. Why? So we can earn more money also, right? Then after taking care of our needs, or as part of even taking care of our needs, we should do our Pancha Mahayajnas. We should do our duties. Yes? Yes. Then, whatever money, time, and energy is left over after completing the duties, that is ours to do whatever we want with. Righteous things. Whatever we want to enjoy, whatever we want to do. Then that remaining is like our disposable income or discretionary income, whatever the economists call it. Then that is ours to do. That is that which is remaining after the yajna is complete. That time, energy, and money which is remaining after yajna is complete, that is called as yajna shishta. And then we are free to enjoy that how we want. But the point is, first we do our duties, then we can have our leisure time, right? First the children should come home and do what? Homework. And then after doing homework, they can watch TV or whatever. Right? In the same way, first we must do our duties, then we can enjoy. Right? And even while we're doing our duties, when we're going to work, we're supporting some client or customer or somebody. We're serving somebody. So that's part of our Manushya Yajna. When we pray every day, we should make sure that our children are also praying with us. So that is part of our Deva Yajna and our Brahma Yajna also. At various times when we do our Shraddha Karma, that is our Pitra Karma. And every day, if you have, someone is telling me that their city actually supports a composting kind of program. So if you have that, do that. That is your Bhuta Yajna. Or if your backyard is pretty big, you just throw the scraps in the backyard. This is Austin, right? So all kind of animals will come and eat that also. Foxes, vultures, coyotes, armadillos, birds, all these things. That is your Bhuta Yajna. Even the worms in the ground and stuff like that, that is your Bhuta Yajna. Some mold grows on that food. That's also just mold is bacteria or something else. Some kind of spore it is, whatever it is. Okay, that's also Bhuta Yajna. Okay? So in our day-to-day life, we should integrate it as Bhuta Yajna. You don't even have to necessarily change what you do. You just change the attitude with which you do it. When you're working, you think, I'm doing my Manushya Yajna. I'm serving the people, whoever they may be. Yes or no? Okay? Right? So all these yajnas you should do. Then, if you don't do your yajna, what happens, right? So many people are doing yajna. It's not just that the rain falls on only those people who do yajna. Rain comes for everybody, right? So if you're doing yajna and you get rain, that is good. But if you're not doing yajna and you get the rain that everyone else provided for, then what? Then you're like as if stealing, right? Because you didn't do the work, but you got the benefit. You took without giving, right? And when you take without giving back, that is called as stealing, right? If you just take something from the store and you don't pay for it, that is stealing. If you take the benefit of all this yajna and you don't pay it back, if you don't do the yajna, then that is also stealing. Now let's say you do all your work, so that is one case, right? Then if you do all your work and everything like that, but you spend all the money on yourself and all the time and energy on yourself, then whatever you're enjoying sin, right? Because you haven't done your yajna. And like I said last time, you are what you eat. Two things in life are true. More than two things, but these two things. You get what you pay for, and you are what you eat, right? So if you're eating sin, as Lord Krishna has said, by not doing the yajna, then you are a papi. Or if you're eating papa, then you are a papi. Okay? So that is a summary of the point. So second reason that you should do yajna is because if you're taking the benefit, then you should do the yajna. If you're taking the benefit of the yajna, then you should do the yajna. That's the second reason. First reason was karma yoga leads to jnana yoga, leads to realization. So do karma yoga so you can get realization. Second reason is don't take without giving back. Don't take the benefit of yajna without doing the yajna. Is it clear? Everyone's clear on the two reasons? Yes. Okay. So that is everything Lord Brahma said. Now let us go to the next verses, which give another reason for doing yajna. Verses 14 and 15 we'll take. Okay, so I'll chant and you repeat. This should be on the same page. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhavaha yajñāt bhavati parjanyaha yajñah karma samudbhavaha karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajñe pratishtitam. So verses 14 and 15, let us chant them together. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyadanna sambhavaha yajñāt bhavati parjanyaha yajñah karma samudbhavam karma brahmodbhavam vidhi brahmakshara samudbhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajñe pratishtitam. Okay. Annad bhavanti bhutani. So bhutani, annad bhavanti. Okay. Bhutani means the beings. And annad means from food. And bhavanti means becomes or comes from. Okay? So the beings, the living beings, they come from food. What does that mean? The living beings, they come from the food that their parents ate, in the case of animals and such. So the living beings, whatever food that your parents ate, that becomes you. And then after you're born, whatever food that you eat, that sustains your body. That sustains the beings. Okay? So beings come from food. Okay? So beings are number 1 and food is number 2. Okay? So we'll number all the things. Is it clear how beings come from food? Simple? Okay. Next step. What's the next step? Parjanyad anna sambhavaha. So where does the food come from? Annam parjanyad sambhavaha. So the food, it comes from the rains. Okay? So food comes from rains. Parjanya means rains. Anna means food. Okay? So because the rains fall on the fields, the food grows. Okay? Food grows because of rain. How much do I have to explain? I don't have to explain anything because everyone understands that food comes from rain. Okay? So beings come from food. Number 1, beings come from. Number 2, food. And number 2, food comes from rains. Okay? So number 1 is what? Beings. Number 2 is food. And number 3 is rain. Okay, very good. Yajñād bhavati parjanya. Okay? So where does rain come from? Parjanyaha yajñād bhavati. Rains come from the yajña. So here it means the deva yajña. Out of the 5 pancha yajñas, here it means the deva yajña. So by the performance of the various yajñas, we can not control, but we can influence the good rains to come. Okay? We can ensure that a good rains comes. Not too little, not too much rains, and not no rains. Some rains will come. Right? So yajna is what causes the rains to come in a well-regulated kind of way. Okay? And still they do this kind of yajna in India, where they make the rains come in a proper time and a proper amount. Is it clear? They did close to CR, Chinmaya International Residential School in Coimbatore. There they had the rains come. And on the last day of the yajna, the cloud actually comes and it rains. Okay? Sometimes it rains more than what they want it to rain, but it rains and rains and rains. Okay? Some secrets our rishis knew. They're the secrets for us, but they knew, they understood. They knew. Okay? So rains become because of what? Yajna. Okay? Then what's next? Yajna karma samudbhavam. So yajna karma samudbhavaha. So yajna comes because of the effort, the performance of action. Okay? So the yajna, the performance of yajna is because of some effort that's being made by the people in a community. What is yajna? Gurudev says, yajna is a collective endeavor dedicated to the benefit of the community. Okay? Yajna is a collective endeavor dedicated for the benefit of the community. This is yajna. So that collective effort is a karma. Okay? That karma. That prescription of karma. Is it clear? Number 1 is beings. Number 2 is food. Food comes from? Rain comes from? And yajna comes from? Karma. Okay? All right. So where does karma come from? Karma, Brahma Udbhavam. The karma comes from Brahma. Okay? What does Brahma mean? So Brahma in different contexts can mean different things. Okay? Here Brahma means Veda. So karma, the prescription of karma, which karma to do, and what that karma will get you, that is coming from the Veda. Okay? Side note, what are the various different things that the word Brahma can mean? Okay, so this is just taking a little bit of a tangent. First meaning for Brahma can mean Brahman, Atman, that infinite, that supreme. Okay, that's the first meaning of Brahman. Second meaning of Brahma can mean the Veda. Okay, Brahma can also mean the Veda. The third meaning of Brahma can be the Ooh. It can be a Brahmana. One who's in that Brahmana Varna, that can be known as Brahma. And then the fourth meaning of Brahma is that Lord Brahma, that Chaturmukhi, that four-headed Lord Brahma. So these are the various meanings that the word Brahma can take. Okay, but here, when we say Brahma, what do we mean? Veda. Here means, Brahma means Veda. Okay, so here Brahma means Veda. So that, how to do that karma, when to do that karma, and what to do, all that is coming from the Veda. Okay, so number one is beings. Beings come from? Food comes from? How come everyone's not saying? Number one is beings. Where do beings come from? Food. Where does food come from? Rains. Where does rains come from? And where does yajna come from? Karma. And where does karma come from? Vedas. Okay? Then what's next? So vidhi means just know that karma comes from the Veda. Brahmakshara samudbhavam. So Brahma, the Veda, comes from Aksharam. Brahma arises from Aksharam. So what does Aksharam mean? Aksharam means Ishvara. Akshara means God. Akshara means Ishvara. So the Veda comes from God. Samudbhavam. Samudbhavam means it flows from the Lord effortlessly. So that Veda flows from the Lord effortlessly. Ishvara does not have to make any special effort to give the Veda. Ishvara reveals the Veda to the rishis quite effortlessly, as if breathing. That's how they say in the commentary. Okay? So, Lord Brahma reveals the Veda. Not Lord Brahma. From Ishvara comes the Veda. Is it clear? Okay. Let's go through it one more time. Beings come from where? Food. Number two, food. Food comes from where? Rains. Rains come from where? Yajna comes from? Karma. Karma comes from? Comes from Vedas. And Veda comes from? Ishvara. Bhagwan. Ishvara. Okay? Now reverse order. From Ishvara comes? Veda. Are you ready? You need 30 seconds to collect? Okay, give yourselves 10 seconds. Okay. From Ishvara comes Veda. From Veda comes? From karma comes? Yajna. From yajna comes? Rains. From rains come? Food. And from food comes? Beings. Okay? So all these things, they originate from Ishvara. Ishvara has set a cosmic cycle in motion so that the beings get nourished and the beings do their yajna so that Ishvara also gets nourished. Okay? So Ishvara nourishes the beings by giving us the Veda that tells us how to do the yajna, which gives us rains and foods. So Ishvara nourishes us by telling us how to get the food, okay, in a sense, by ensuring that we know how we can get the food. And we nourish Ishvara by doing our Deva Yajna, okay? So Ishvara nourishes us and we nourish Ishvara, specifically in the context of Deva Yajna. It said before, Parasparam Bhavayantaha. Mutually we nourish each other. Mutually the people and the Ishvara nourish each other. Ishvara nourishes us and we nourish Ishvara. Is this point understood? So when we do our yajna, we are part of a cosmic cycle. We are sustaining a cosmic cycle. And it's just not just Deva Yajna. When we do our Brahma Yajna, we're sustaining the culture. When we're doing our Pitra Yajna, we're sustaining our ancestors and we're also making sure our culture gets propagated. When we're doing Bhuta Yajna, we're sustaining the nature. And when we're doing Manushya Yajna, we're nourishing the society. And all these things in turn nourish us. If there's no civilizational society, if everything is just I don't know if you've heard of these Mad Max movies, if everything is just like a chaos, then we don't get nourished. So we have to nourish the society. We have to nourish. If we don't nourish the culture, then without a culture, what are we? Everything just becomes do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt everybody else. That becomes the whole ethos of the society. That's kind of society is a very hollow, materialistic kind of society. Yes or no? We can kind of see these days even. Okay? So when we nourish everything, then everything nourishes us. We are part of a cycle. Okay? Tasmat. Therefore, because Ishvara is the source of all nourishment, and because we also have to do our yajna to nourish Ishvara, Sarvagatam Brahma. Sarvagatam, that all-pervading Brahma. Brahma here means Ishvara. Be careful. Okay. Brahma before meant what? Brahma here means Ishvara. Okay? So that all-pervading Ishvara, Nityam, always, Yajne Pratishtitam. Yajne in Yajna Pratishtitam means rest, means is established. So that because Ishvara nourishes us and we nourish Ishvara. How do we nourish Ishvara? By doing the Yajna. Then that Ishvara is always established in Yajna. Ishvara is always established in Yajna in three ways. Because Ishvara is the source of the Veda that tells us the karma and tells us that we should do yajna. Ishvara is always established in yajna. Because Ishvara is, number one, the source of the yajna. Because Ishvara nourishes us by telling us how to perform the yajna, as such, Ishvara is always established in yajna. And because Ishvara is nourished by the yajna, Ishvara is also established by yajna. So Ishvara can only make the rains come, so to speak, or make any kind of nourishment come if we do the yajna. If you don't do a good action, can you get punya? No. And if you don't get the punya, can you get a good result? Right? If you do a good action, like yajna, you get the punya. And you get the punya, you get a good result. Right? If you don't do a good action, you don't get the punya. If you don't do the yajna, you don't get the punya. And then the punya cannot lead to a good result, such as rains. Okay? So Ishvara is dependent on us for doing yajna. So Ishvara can provide us with the sukha, with the good result. Does it make sense? Okay. I feel sometimes I'm overly systematic. I'm too much of an engineer. I should not take all the magic out of things. Okay? You have to do the yajna to nourish Ishvara so that we can get the good result. Okay, so therefore, Ishvara is always established in yajna, because Ishvara is the source of yajna, because Ishvara nourishes us through yajna, and because we nourish Ishvara by performing the yajna. Okay, 3 reasons. Okay, I'm just one person. I'm one tiny little individual I am in this universe. So if I do yajna or don't do yajna, how big of a difference does it make? Okay? So let us see. Verse 16. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriyaramaha mogham partha sajivati. Very good. Chant together. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriyaramaha mogham partha sajivati. So, iha means in this world. It comes in the second quarter. Yaha means for one who. Okay? So, for one who what? Na anuvartayati. Na means does not. Anuvartayati means follow. So in this world, the one who does not follow what? Evam pravartitam chakram. So chakram means this wheel, this cosmic cycle. What is a cosmic cycle? Starting from beings. Beings comes from? It comes from? One more time for emphasis, loud, okay? Beings comes from? I'm only hearing one person, really. Okay? And Veda comes from? Ishvara, okay? So this is the cosmic cycle, through which cycle means what? Has to go in a circle, right? Ishvara nourishes us and we nourish Ishvara. Pitras nourish us and we nourish Pitras. Veda rishis nourish us and we nourish rishis, Vedas. And then bhutas nourish us, we nourish. This is a very easy repetition, okay? Then only one more is there. What is that? Manushyas, people nourish us and we nourish. Okay, that's easy. Okay, so that cosmic cycle, for the one that does not follow it, what happens, right? So what is our part in the cosmic cycle? Have you ever taken apart a mechanical watch? If you open the mechanical watch, what do you see inside? You see so many gears, and so many of those gears are so tiny, so small. What happens if you take out one of those gears? Even if you take out the smallest gear that's in the watch, that watch, either it's not going to work at all, or it's not going to keep the time properly, right? So every tiny little gear in that watch has to be there, and has to be functioning properly, without any cracks or anything in it, in order for the watch to work as a whole. In your own house, if somebody does not do their chores for 3 or 4 days consecutively, what happens in the house? The house becomes a chaos, people become mad, it becomes a very unharmonious, not very fun house for anybody. This person doesn't want to do the chores, that person's very mad that you didn't do the chores, is wondering when you're going to do it, is maybe doing it themselves. It's really bad, right? Have we seen or no? No, I haven't seen. I don't know what you're talking about. It's never happened. Right? So when people don't do their part, it leads to a breakdown in a system. It leads to a gap, it leads to a hole in whatever system that is. When each of us has a very important part, not just in our own home or at our workplace or community, but as part of sustaining the good function of this entire universe. We must do our duties. We must do our yajnas. In those times in history where people are really focused on doing their duty in a dedicated, efficient, and a hard-working way, then that society becomes as if a utopia. That becomes a perfect society. But when people do not do their duties properly, then that society starts to break down. Then it's every man or every woman for themselves, And really the society, the interactions between people become very hostile. People don't have that kind of compassion for each other. The culture starts to break down. The environment gets polluted because no one has that intention of protecting the environment. Nothing works quite the way that it should. And you feel a kind of selfishness pervading the entire atmosphere. When everybody is not engaged in yajna, then things start to break down. And less people who are doing their Panchamaha Yajna, the more things start to break down. Like we have this, in our system of time, we have 4 what? Yugas, right? Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So this descent of yugas, where everything gets progressively worse, it's an indication of people not doing their yajnas, right? So if you want the society to become better, you have to do your yajna. At least the place around you will become better if you do yajna, right? You nourish everything, and everything will nourish you. If you don't do that nourishing, then you also won't be nourished. Then the society will be super comfortable. How many conveniences and comforts and technologies and everything that we have, but then the people in the society are happy, not happy, or what? You think for yourself, right? Despite having all these things, people, you get that sense they're not really happy. What does Gurudev says? The tragedy of human history is decreasing happiness in the face of increasing comforts, right? So we may have all these nice, wonderful things, but are we happy? Why aren't we happy? Because we're not doing our duty to the cosmos, to the totality. So if we want totality to be good, we have to do yajna. What is it that makes people not do yajna? Why don't people do their duties? What do you think? Laziness. What else? Ignorance. What else? Selfishness. What else? What is it that makes people selfish? Attachment. What is it that makes people attached? Desires. Okay. Every single answer everyone gave is a correct answer. Lord Krishna says, Indriya Aramaha. What happens? People revel in the senses. People are there to fulfill their own senses. They want to become happy from a sensory standpoint. Senses, meaning that they want to enjoy the sensory things in this world. They also want to enjoy having so much money. They also want to enjoy being famous. They put their ego, they put their desires, they put this sensory enjoyment in front of their duty. They neglect their duty because they're reveling, they're only enjoying from the senses standpoint. So therefore they neglect duty. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to work and earn. Then with whatever time, energy we have, we do our yajna, we do our duties. Then whatever is yajna shishta, whatever time, energy, and money that we have that is left over, then we can enjoy with leisure, And we have that, whether it's leisure time or leisure time, I don't know. But then that time is for us to enjoy. But what are people doing? They do their work, they earn their money, they have their time and energy, and they spend all of it on leisure. They'll spend all of it on themselves without contributing back. And this contributes to a breakdown of the society when people are very selfish. And what is this? This is called agayuhu. Aga means papa. So oftentimes papa is referred to as sin, but this is not a correct translation. Aga means papa. So ayuhu means life. So such people who revel in the senses and neglect their duties, agayuhu, they lead a life of papa, aga. Okay? And Partha, hey Arjuna, mogam sajivati, saha mogam jivati. They lead life in vain. They live their life in such a selfish way that they never grow on a personal level. Instead of proceeding towards, a more pure heart, a more focused mind, and in the end towards moksha, they actually go running in the other direction, the opposite direction. They're going towards a personality, spiritual devolution. Okay? They're not evolving, they're devolving. They're not getting better, they're getting worse. They're living life in vain. Life is our opportunity to be great, to find our potential, to meet our potential, and finally to get realized. This life is an opportunity. In Viveka Chudamani, it's quite stark what they say in the first few verses. They say if you spend this life doing anything other than trying to get realized, you're committing suicide in a sense, right? Because if you don't get moksha, what happens to you? You have to be born again. And if you're born again, you die again. So in that sense, you're committing yourself to a future death. Not just death in this life, but a future death. Okay? So don't live life in vain. Spend your life happily doing duty, not grudgingly doing duty. Oh, I have to do this. I don't want to take the trash out. I don't want to do the dishes. I don't want to do this work. I don't want to call this person on the phone. You may do it anyway, but don't do it begrudgingly. Do it with that sense of, I must do it. And by doing this, I'm sustaining the entire cosmos. Happy homes make a happy society, okay? So yajna starts at home, okay? You start there. You don't have to save the world. You save the world by, making your own place a good place. Everything builds up. All right. So third reason for doing karma yoga, for doing yajna, is that it sustains the proper harmonious functioning of the universe, of the cosmos. First reason, do karma yoga so you can do jnana yoga so you can get realized. That's the first number one reason. Second reason is, if you're taking from the system, you better put back in the system. Otherwise you're a thief. Otherwise you're eating sin, eating papa. Third reason is, by doing yajna, you ensure the proper functioning of the cosmos. And by not doing yajna, you're contributing to the decadence and decay of society, the fall of civilization. So do your yajna. You have an important part to play. Be a good cog in the wheel. Don't be a clog in the wheel. Okay? All right. So another reason that he gives, we'll just cover quickly in the last few minutes. Verse 17. Yastvat maratireva syat atmatriptascha manavaha atmanyeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. Together. Yastvat maratireva syat atmatriptascha manavaha atmanyeva cha santushtaha tasya karyam na vidyate. Lord Krishna, is there any exception to doing duty? Is anybody exempt from doing duties? There has to be. There's always an exception, okay? Anybody who doesn't have to do yajna, this or that, Lord Krishna said, yeah, there's one classification that is exempt from duties, right? There's one classification of person that's not obligated to do duty, that's not harming the cosmic function by not doing duty. So who is this person? Manava. This person, yaha manava. Yaha is the first word in the first quarter, and manavaha is the last word in the second quarter. So that person who atmarati. Atmarati means revels in the self. Eva, only. So that person who revels only in the self. Then it says atma triptaha cha. And who's atma triptaha? Who's satisfied in the self? Who's contented in the self? And atmani eva santushtaha. Who's so overjoyed, so overpowered by bliss in the self, tasya karyam na vidyate. For that person, there is no karma. That person does not have to do yajna. Okay? So long story short, the saying, if you're realized, you don't have to do any yajna. Okay? But what is all this? Atmarati, Atmatripta, and Atmani Santushta. What does all this mean? What is the difference between these three terms? Okay? So first, let's take it from the middle one, Atmatripta. So tripta means that kind of satisfied, right? So let's say you're really, really hungry. You haven't eaten all day, Maybe you're doing that intermittent fasting or something like that. You haven't eaten for 17, 18 hours or so, and you're really, really hungry. And someone makes you a good full meal and you eat that. And after eating that, you feel full. Like you don't want to eat anymore. You're not over full, you're full after eating that meal. That is called as tripta. Okay? Okay, so that's tripta. Okay, what is santushta? Okay, let's say that you're still let's say in a different situation, you're very, very hungry. You haven't eaten for 18, 19 hours, something like that. You're very, very hungry. And then someone makes you your favorite food that you have not eaten for like years. Someone makes you go back to your hometown and someone makes you just that food. Have you ever heard of a food called kalari? It's like this kind of, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's this kind of cheese and jammu, and it's kind of like halloumi, but it's a little bit kind of creamier. And even though halloumi is very salty, this one's just like, anybody's had that? It's just like a little bit more salty. And there's only very few, like Udhampur, you can kind of get this kind of, and it's so delicious, right? It's so delicious, you feel bad eating it, how delicious it is. And so I like wonder what's happening to my cholesterol also. But it's so awesome, that food. So that happiness you get, it's only in that place. Only someone opened a shop in Jammu recently, I learned. But it's only in that kind of rural place usually. That satisfaction, not just the society, not just that, being full, but that like supreme, so good, this is so awesome, that is called as santushta. Then atmarati, like right now I'm remembering how good that galati was. I'm reveling in the taste of that thing that I've had before. So that atmarati, that is called as reveling, So in the now I'm out of time, so I'll just rush a little bit. So that sense where you feel that completeness of the bliss of the self, that is indicated by atma tripta, that fullness. That sense in which I feel so joyous in that bliss of the self, that is atma santushta. And that atma rati means that joy never ends. That joy is sustained. Just like I'm remembering that food right now and enjoying so much, one is always sustained in the bliss of that Atman, that is Atmarati. For such a person, they don't need to do karma yoga because they've already reached the goal. You only have to do karma yoga if you've not become realized yet. But if you're already realized, you don't need to do karma yoga. Then what has the realized person understood? That this whole cosmos is an illusion. That this whole cosmos is not real. And therefore, if the cosmos is not real for this person, they don't need to do any yajna. Okay? Let's end it there. We'll pick it up in the next class. Beings come from what? Food comes from what? Rains come from what? Yajna comes from what? Karma comes from what? And Veda comes from Ishvara. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om